Order, order.
The Draft Animal Welfare Livestock Exports Enforcement Regulations 2024.
Minister, would you be good enough to move the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. It's always a pleasure to serve with you in the chair, and I beg to move that the committee has considered the Draft Animal Welfare Livestock Exports Enforcement Regulations 2024, which were laid before the House on the 12th of September. Now, these regulations provide the powers necessary to implement and enforce the live exports ban in the Animal Welfare Livestock Exports Act 2024. They create a robust enforcement regime that builds on existing requirements for animal welfare in transport, whilst ensuring the impact on industry is minimised. The regulations apply across England, Scotland and Wales to ensure a uniform, consistent approach to implementation and enforcement of the ban across Great Britain. This instrument provides powers to the Animal and Plant Health Agency as the regulator for animal welfare during transport, and to local authorities who are responsible for enforcement. Now, a key feature of these regulations is they strengthen the pre-export controls for livestock that are already undertaken by APHA. Transporters of cattle, sheep, pigs and goats to a third country are already required to submit a plan of the journey log, for approval by APHA before the journey commences. They will now be required also to provide evidence of the purpose of their export or transit journey. Before approving the journey log, APHA will need to be satisfied that the consignment will not be exported for slaughter or fattening. And I'm sure that will be welcome across the entire House. The intention is that this will minimise circumvention of the ban and any need for enforcement action. So we've worked with the National Beef, Sheep and Pig Associations and the British Pig Association to set up a process through which they will assess and verify evidence provided by journey organisers. This will be a recognised and straightforward route for journey organisers to supply PHA with the required evidence. And we're doing this because industry is familiar with working with the national associations, particularly on breeding exports, and we believe this will encourage engagement and compliance with the new requirement. Now, it's important to be clear, these pre-export controls do not apply to horses. Due to the more varied nature of horse movements, the situation is more complex, and we're therefore working closely with stakeholders who know their industry best to find the most effective solution to prevent horses being exported for slaughter. We've established a co-design group and expect to present specific measures for horses for consideration by the House next year. In addition to pre-export controls, this instrument provides regulatory and enforcement powers to APHA and local authorities, which may be used in relation to livestock and horses should investigative or enforcement action prove necessary. APHA will have the ability to suspend or revoke a transporter authorisation where evidence exists of non-compliance with the live exports ban. There will be an appeal route, firstly through reconsideration by APHA, and then, if unsuccessful, to the first tier tribunal. This instrument creates a power to prevent the movement of animals through issuing a hold notice where inspectors suspect they may be exported for slaughter. Local authorities are provided with a power of entry and inspection to premises, including vehicles, vessels and dwellings, where inspectors believe an offence is being, has been or is about to be committed, or there is believed to be evidence of an offence on the premises. This includes a power of entry to private dwellings, subject to obtaining a warrant. Exporters of livestock and horses must retain export records for 3 years and provide them to an inspector upon request. And failing to keep such records will be an offence, as will failing to comply with a hold notice or obstructing an inspector. The penalty would be an unlimited fine in England and Wales, or a fine limited to level 5 on the standard scale in Scotland. So in conclusion, Mr. Stringer, we're taking a risk-based approach to regulating trade and to minimise burden on industry whilst preventing circumvention of the live exports ban. This instrument is vital to enforce this important animal welfare measure.
The question is that the committee has considered the Draft Animal Welfare Livestock Exports Enforcement Regulations 2024. Will Moore on behalf of the opposition.
Thank you, Mr Stringer, and as ever it is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. As we've already heard this morning, the regulations before us today are an exercise of the powers conferred under the Animal Welfare Livestock Exports Act 2024. This act was a significant achievement of the previous Conservative government, that it prohibited the export of certain livestock from Great Britain for slaughter outside of the British Islands. The bill received royal assent shortly before the general election, and we should not forget that it was because the UK had left the European Union that we had the freedom to implement such a ban. It was the Conservative Party manifesto in 2019 general election that included the commitment to control the live export of livestock. I'm pleased to see that the government is helping to deliver on this commitment. The regulations establish enforcement powers, offences and penalties relating to the prohibition of the export of relevant livestock for slaughter, including the fattening for slaughtered livestock. It is appropriate that it is being dealt with on a UK-wide basis to ensure that the regulations are introduced simultaneously across England, Scotland and Wales. And as a farmer's son, I am well aware that livestock transport journeys can start and travel through the different nations of the UK. If the devolved nations had created their own regulations, there would be a divergence, creating complexity, inconsistencies and administrative burdens on the industry and enforcement agencies. I'm therefore happy, Mr Stringer, to confirm that the Conservative Party will provide its continued support for this Act and these regulations. And can I conclude by paying tribute to the officials in the department and also organisations outside of this House who have worked hard to get these regulations before us today.
Minister, care to respond?
Thank you, and can I thank the opposition spokesperson for his generous words and also for the work that he did in government, because this is clearly concluding the work that was done by the previous government, and we're very, very happy to do that. Mr Stringer, this government is committed to upholding the highest standards when it comes to animal welfare, and that's why we are putting in place these provisions to ensure the ban on live exports for slaughter is implemented and enforced effectively, and I beg to move.
The question is that the committee has considered the draft Animal Welfare Livestock Exports Enforcement Regulations 2024. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order.